Have you ever stepped outside on a perfectly clear night and just
It's up.
yeah, looked up at the sheer unfathomable scale of the universe and just wondered, if it's all just raw blind power out there?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's that classic, almost overwhelming feeling of standing under the stars, feeling incredibly small, and trying to comprehend whether the cosmos is driven by, like, an intentional organizing mind, or if it's just, well, if it's just a chaotic, endless explosion of physics.
Right, because you look at billions of galaxies, and you really can't help but feel like a literal speck of dust.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that feeling of insignificance is practically wired into our DNA, you know?
Oh, totally.
When we look at the infinite expanse of space,
Mm-hmm.
we are immediately confronted with our own microscopic scale.
Mm.
And as human beings, we're evolutionarily conditioned to equate massive size with massive importance.
Right, like a towering mountain or...
A raging ocean.
Yeah.
Or a massive predator. Our instincts tell us that whatever's biggest is obviously in charge.
That makes sense.
So naturally, if the universe is this unbelievably huge arena of stars and dark matter, we just assume that whatever governs it must be equally, unimaginably huge, like some
Yeah.
cosmic presence that wraps around the entire infinite expanse.
Which honestly makes perfect intuitive sense, but, and this is why we're here today, that exact assumption is what we are going to completely dismantle in today's deep dive.
Yes, we are.
We are unpacking a highly concentrated and frankly mind-bending philosophical excerpt titled 7, The Greatest Creator is Supremely Capable.
It is such a dense piece of text.
It really is. And the mission for our deep dive today is to understand how this single, incredibly dense piece of writing attempts to map out the entire physical and conscious structure of the universe.
And they do it using a surprisingly everyday object.
Yeah. Which is wild. We are going to completely flip the traditional understanding of scale and power.
I love this text because it takes concepts that usually require like a degree in astrophysics or theology and grounds them in something you probably have sitting in your refrigerator right now. It's a brilliant approach, I think. It challenges you to stop looking outward at the terrifying vastness of space and start looking inward at the concentration of thought.
Okay, so to understand why this author argues that the universe's creator is, quote, supremely capable, we first need to look at the physical blueprint they lay out. Let's get into that blueprint.
Let's do it.
So the author's baseline premise starts with something we generally accept in modern science, right? That the entire universe is one massive aggregation of various forms of energy.
Right. Everything that exists across all those billions of light years is just an ocean of energy in different states of density and motion.
But then we zoom in.
We do. Within this vast, seemingly endless aggregation of energy, the author introduces that specific everyday analogy we teased earlier to help us visualize the structure.
The refrigerator object.
Exactly. We are told to picture an egg.
An egg. Just a regular egg.
Just an egg. The general aggregation of all cosmic energy, so that infinite ocean of stars and matter is the egg white.
Wow.
It makes up the vast majority of the volume. It is the bulk of the physical space. And suspended within that massive, mostly uniform white space is an inner energy cluster.
Which would be the yolk.
The yolk, exactly.
I love this visual because it immediately gives like a center to the infinite. It gives you something to anchor onto.
Right, but we don't stop at the yolk.
Oh, no, we zoom in again.
Yep, inside this yolk, the text says there is a very small energy embryo.
Okay.
And then peeling back one final layer, inside that tiny embryo, there is an even smaller nucleus.
So we just went from the infinite, mind-numbing vastness of the entire universe down to a cluster, down to an embryo, down to a microscopic dot.
We did.
Yeah.
And this absolute tiniest, most concentrated microscopic inner nucleus is defined as the central nervous system of the universe.
The central nervous system.
Yes. It is the consciousness of energy. It is the ultimate thinking center. And in the framework of this philosophy, it is the greatest creator.
Okay, I need to pause this right here. Because my brain is actively rebelling against this idea.
I get that.
I mean, this completely defies that evolutionary instinct you mentioned earlier. Usually when we try to conceptualize a universal mind or a supreme creator, we imagine an all-encompassing blanket, right?
Right, like a presence that is bigger than the universe itself, wrapping around every single galaxy.
Exactly. So why shrink the creator down to a microscopic dot? How can the absolute most powerful, capable force in existence be like the smallest thing in the room?
Well, because we have to separate the concept of volume from the concept of value.
Volume versus value.
Right. We're so deeply conditioned to believe that bigger equals more powerful. But look at the biological imagery being used here. The author doesn't just call this nucleus a small dot or something.
Right, they specifically call it the central nervous system of the universe.
Exactly.
So we are moving away from the physics of scale and moving into the biology of control,
Yes. Think about your own body. You weigh, let's say, 160 pounds.
give or take.
Right, give or take. But the vast majority of that weight is just water, bone, fat, and muscle tissue.
That physical bulk is the egg white.
You got it. It takes up all the space in the room. But where does your actual power lie? It doesn't lie in the water retention of your cells.
No.
It lies in your nervous system. More specifically, it lies in the tiny, microscopic electrochemical signals firing within your brain.
Wow, okay.
Those sparks make up like a fraction of a percent of your total physical mass, yet they dictate every single movement, every thought, every action of the larger body.
So the mass of the body is really just the vehicle. It's just raw material waiting for instructions.
Exactly. The nervous system doesn't need to be massive to be in charge. Power in this biological framework isn't about how much space you take up.
Right.
It's entirely about your ability to process information, to formulate an intention, and to direct the rest of the massive body.
Okay, I'm following. So by shrinking the creator down to a tiny nucleus, the philosophy is arguing that supreme capability is infinitely dense, not infinitely expansive.
Right. The universe is governed by the ultimate concentration of intention.
That distinction between volume and value really changes the map, doesn't it?
It flips everything.
Because if the absolute tiniest point in the center is the only source of value, thought, and direction, well, that paints a rather unsettling picture of everything else.
It really does.
If the vast majority of all of those billions of galaxies, all that cosmic volume is just raw material, what is the actual nature of all that energy? Because it's still out there. It's still expanding and reacting.
Well, the nature of that energy is stark and honestly quite terrifying.
How so?
Because the philosophy explicitly states that energy itself has no consciousness or awareness.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
None.
None. The egg white of the universe, no matter how physically powerful or hot or expansive it is completely blind.
Wow.
It doesn't know it exists. It has no intention behind its movements. It is just raw thermodynamic reaction.
And to illustrate just how blind this energy is, the author brings in what is probably the most extreme manifestation of physical power known to humanity.
Right, the atomic bomb.
Yeah, the atomic bomb. The immense energy released by nuclear fission doesn't distinguish between anything. It kills the corrupt dictator, and it kills the innocent child with exactly the same thermodynamic efficiency.
And it extends to the physical world, too. The text points out that this blind energy will vaporize a king's palace just as easily as it will level the wooden hut of an ordinary person.
It doesn't care.
Not at all. The bomb doesn't pause mid-air to evaluate the moral standing of its victims or appreciate the architectural history of the buildings it destroys.
Right.
It is purely unconscious force.
It reminds me of like a Category 5 hurricane making landfall.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Because a storm like that contains the kinetic energy of thousands of nuclear weapons. It is a force of unimaginable physical capability. But what makes a hurricane so terrifying isn't just the wind speed.
Right.
It's the fact that you cannot reason with it. It doesn't have a moral compass. It doesn't look down at a coastline and consciously decide to spare the children's hospital while knocking down the abandoned warehouse next door. It's just a swirl of math and physics acting completely without intention.
The hurricane analogy is spot on. It highlights the exact limitation of raw power. But it's interesting because the author deliberately chooses the atomic bomb instead of a natural disaster to make a very pointed argument.
Oh, because a hurricane is nature, but the bomb is...
It's human creation,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It represents the absolute pinnacle of destructive physical energy that we, as a species, have managed to unlock.
Right. We worship that kind of power. We base entire global geopolitical structures around who holds that energy.
We really do. It's the ultimate flex of human capability on a physical level.
Right. But then this philosophy dismisses the bomb's intellectual and moral value entirely, precisely because it is unconscious.
Exactly. It's
Okay.
a profoundly stupid power.
Stupid power. I like that phrasing.
Being awed by the explosive force of a bomb or the vastness of the universe's blazing stars is like being awed by the sheer volume of an egg white.
You're missing the point.
Completely. The energy is massive, yes, but
Yeah.
it is entirely meaningless because it has no direction of its own.
Which brings us to a massive collision of these two ideas.
The clash between the nucleus and the egg white.
Right, because if raw energy is unimaginably vast, but entirely blind and meaningless, How does that microscopic tiny nucleus from our first segment maintain any sort of control?
Right. How does the yoke direct the hurricane?
Exact.
Well, the author acknowledges that energy is extraordinarily powerful.
Hmm.
There's no denial of the physical reality that a nuclear explosion is a massive event.
Sure.
But then the argument pivots to the core mechanism of reality.
Yeah.
And it says, what is fundamentally more powerful than energy is the act of thinking.
Thinking.
Yes, the text brings the atomic bomb analogy full circle with a statement that feels almost shocking in its simplicity.
That the minds of the scientists who created the atomic bomb are fundamentally more powerful than the atomic bomb itself.
Let's really pull that apart.
Yeah.
Because we usually measure power in megatons, in blast radiuses, in thermal output, right?
Yeah, physical metrics.
And by those physical metrics, the bomb is infinitely more powerful than a frail human scientist sitting at a desk with a chalkboard.
Right, and I am genuinely struggling with the practical application of this. Like, let's push this to its logical extreme.
Okay, let's do it.
If you put the scientist and the bomb in a room together and the bomb goes off, physical reality wins.
Without question.
The bomb vaporizes the scientist in a millisecond.
Hmm.
So how can this philosophy honestly argue that the tiny, fragile mind is more powerful than the explosive energy that can instantly destroy it?
Because you are looking at the reaction, not the causality.
Oh, causality.
Right. We have to understand the mechanism of intention. The bomb vaporizing the scientist is just physics following a predetermined rule.
Right.
The bomb has exactly one trick. It explodes. It has absolutely no potential for choice.
It can't decide to do something else.
Exactly. It cannot decide not to explode. It cannot decide to use its uranium to generate electricity for a hospital instead. It is locked into a single blind trajectory.
It's a slave to its own thermodynamic nature.
But the mind of the scientist operates on a completely different axis, the axis of potentiality.
Potentiality.
Yes. The mind possesses the intention that created the conditions for the bomb to exist in the first place. The scientist has infinite potential.
Right, they can conceptualize it.
They can conceive of the physics, extract the uranium, build the bomb, dismantle the bomb, or, like we said, use the exact same energy to power a city for a decade.
So the mind is the director of the energy.
Precisely. The bomb can physically destroy the brain, yes. But the bomb only exists because a conscious mind pulled it out of the realm of imagination and forced it into physical reality.
Wow. So the currency of true power isn't joules or megatons, it's potential. It's
Yeah.
like the architect is fundamentally greater than the building, even if the building collapses and physically crushes the architect.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Because the building is just bricks and gravity. The architect is the intention that stacked the bricks to begin with.
And this raises the hierarchy of reality the author is trying to establish. The tiny nucleus, the central nervous system of the universe, the greatest creator, is more capable than the total combined energy of the entire universe because it transcends energy.
It transcends it. It doesn't defeat the energy in a wrestling match.
No, not at all.
It operates the controls.
Exactly. If we map this all out, the minds of the human scientists are the nucleus in the atomic bomb metaphor.
And the atomic bomb itself, with all its blinding heat and destruction, is just the egg white.
Right. It's raw, unconscious material. So the greatest creator transcends the energy of the universe not by hoarding massive amounts of power, not by being a bigger bomb or a larger star.
But by existing as the ultimate concentration of thinking and consciousness.
Exactly. Capability requires intention. You cannot be truly capable if you're blind.
Right. The atomic bomb is not capable of building a society, painting a canvas, or writing a symphony. It is only capable of releasing heat.
Right. True supreme capability rests exclusively in the domain of consciousness. The tiniest spark of genuine directing thought is infinitely heavier on the cosmic scales than an entire galaxy of blind burning stars.
That completely centers the mind as the pinnacle of universal structure.
It does. The vastness of space, all those billions of light years that make us feel so insignificant, is just the medium. It's just the canvas.
And consciousness is the painter.
Exactly.
Okay, let's bring all of this back to where we started. Our mission today was to explore how a few dense philosophical concepts could map out the entire physical and conscious universe using, an egg and an atomic bomb.
Yep.
And what we've uncovered is a framework that completely inverts our evolutionary assumptions about power. The vast, infinite cosmos of energy that we see when we look up at the night sky is fundamentally blind and unconscious.
Cosmic egg white.
Right. True, supreme capability isn't found in endless physical expansion or explosive force. It is found in the smallest, most concentrated point possible, the thinking, conscious nucleus.
Right.
The creator isn't the biggest thing out there. The creator is the most aware thing out there.
It is a profoundly empowering realization, I think. It challenges you to stop being intimidated by the sheer size of the physical world and start valuing the weight of intention.
Yeah.
When you realize that thought dictates matter, you really stop feeling like a meaningless speck of dust.
You do. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds on the incredible tension between the mind and the material world that this author has set up.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've established that the mind of the scientist is fundamentally greater than the atomic bomb because thought directs raw energy.
Right.
But if our universe operates like an egg, with all this blind, devastating energy supposedly directed by a central conscious mind, well, what happens when human beings who possess this supreme power of thought lose control of the blind, unconscious energies we continue to unlock?
Oh, wow. Yeah, because the mechanism of intention goes both ways.
Exactly. Are our minds truly in control of the egg white we are playing with here on Earth? Or, in our endless pursuit of harnessing ever greater blind energy, are we at risk of cracking the shell entirely?
That is a terrifying but very necessary question.
Next time you stand outside and look up at the sheer scale of the night sky, feeling small against the vastness, remember that according to this philosophy, the most powerful force in the universe isn't burning in those massive stars.
It's in the quiet, microscopic center of consciousness looking back at them.
Thank you for joining us on this intellectual journey today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.